recording?
You know, Patty, I was thinking way back a year ago when right before we connected, and we did your divorce summit, which I loved, by the way. That was so much fun. I enjoyed it. Thank you for having me. But so I was expanding what I do in divorce, and I'm thinking about this workshop that I was doing for mental health professionals. And it was about exploring the family construct. And so they gave a list of topics. And one of the topics, you could choose any topic you wanted to do a workshop on. And then, of course, they would see if it's something they wanted to accept. So this was the first time I really expanded the way I thought about divorce and emotion, and how divorce is just one of many challenges in life that can throw you off your game and cause you to be dysfunctional and non-functional in all parts of your life. And this was the first time I came upon the thought, we actually have two families. We have our family at work and we have our family at home. And if you think about it, we spend more of our waking hours at work with that family than we do at home with our personal family. But with both families, we need to be present and functional and be able to deal in the moment, in present time. And that's just so awfully hard for all of us, even those of us who practice mindfulness. When you're working with yourself and other people, and there is a distraction that comes up, what's your go-to? What's your process?
Great question. The very first step is the awareness. And as a leader, as a coach, if you're an entrepreneur, having the awareness of this just landed on, how am I taking it in, right? How am I processing this? Do I have the tools to process this? Or am I now triggered? I always say triggers are our best gifts because it's a big tell and it tells you what to heal. But so, yeah, the very first step, Judy, is always an awareness that this shook me. And not an awareness and not a reaction, right? And so, yeah, step one would be awareness.
And I understand what you mean. So I know you practice mindfulness, and I think you have practiced it longer than I, but I understand the concept, and I can easily get triggered in the divorce business. I mean, it's all about triggers, right? If one of my clients is unhappy with something that I may have said or done, taking something out of context, whatever it is, it doesn't matter. We do walk on our emotional landmines when we work in the divorce business. And I mean that seriously. I've said this to many people. I feel like I walk on emotional landmines for a living. And so I have to be very good at navigating these landmines. I was ready to interview a psychologist who just got a horrible email from one of their clients. And he said, I can't do the interview. I am completely thrown off my game. I can't do the interview. So here's how I handle it in the divorce business. Tell me if what other things I should do. So if I get a triggering email, I just stop and I say, okay, you're not answering the email now. You're thinking. You're going to walk away from the computer for a minute. You're going to take a breath. You're going to realize these people are in a tough place to begin with. Why don't you, Judy, lead with empathy? Why don't you not even try and defend whatever it is they think is going wrong? Because generally they're misinterpreting the situation. They don't know what's normal and expected. But when I have the presence of mind to lead with empathy and call them, not email, God knows the email conversation is the wrong conversation. You want voice context. And I just say, tell me what's going on. I just got your email. Tell me where you're coming from. And that turns it all around. Now, do I do the right thing when I do that?
Absolutely, you did. And you're right not to respond with an email, because there's so much that can go south there, where depending on what their mindset is, they're only going to see words that are aligned with whatever emotion they're processing.
Say
They
that one more time.
literally not see and interpret what you wrote correctly, because they're incapable in that moment.
There you go. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
The another great thing that you did is, it's funny when something lands that's powerful or strong, or that requires a response, we're tempted to, gosh, oh, I've got to get on back to them right now. And the best thing is what you just said is, okay, this has landed here. I am going to stop and process this, right? And let me step back. There's absolutely, I always keep in mind, and as a coach, I know this, that when there's any kind of emotion coming out, and especially anger, what is anger?
Fear,
Fear.
masked fear. Mm-hmm.
It's
Yeah.
fear. I mean, it's not even masked, is it? It's
Well, I guess not. It's all
right.
over us.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's like the strongest expression of fear,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so what I do, and it's such a great way to look at it, it can pull you into instant empathy, actually. If you go, wow, for me, the louder they barked or screamed or yelled, right? I go, oh, they're really terrified. So what can I do or say to them to get them out of fear? How can I get them out of fear? Because I need to do that before the issue that's here won't be resolved. So yeah, great question.
Right. So, so then looking at, we have two families. We have our family at work, we have our family at home. I say, looking at your family at work, just in a softer way, that they are your family. They are on your team. They want to connect with you. They want a good relationship with you. They want empathy, trust, respect. They want all of that. And so, as a leader of a team, of a corporation, as a business owner, and you're trying to take care of all of these people, and people are upset, there's nothing wrong with leading with empathy. I'm thinking out loud as I'm talking to you now. There's nothing wrong with leading with empathy. I don't think people know how to ask for emotional help. They only know how to bark it out, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, traditionally, when you look at the business structure too, I think that it's barely talked about. I mean, not now, it's a very big topic for discussion, because we see so many people distracted and in fear and in anger, and there's so much, polarity going on. And so now they're saying, oh, maybe we should have learned how to manage our emotions better, right? Because they're getting burnt out. They're getting burnt out. It's okay. I can't handle what's going on at home, and there's problems at the office. And, there is just such a heavy burden.
Yeah.
When you don't have an outlet for that, and you don't know how to handle that, you do burn out. There's nowhere for that energy to go, right? You have a time crunch, a day in the life. You look at, getting up at 5 a.m., working out, starting to look at emails, getting to the office. Oh my gosh, now your kid has a soccer game too. Let me see if I can get out of my board meeting in time to get there, right?
Yes.
And they get stuck in traffic, and they're getting an eye roll. Why were you late? You got here in the middle of the game, right? And in their mind, they're already thinking, I need to get back to the office now. I've got 19 other things to do, and people relying on me there. And so depending on the weight of the responsibility on the individual and their ability to cope with it, speaks directly to, gosh, do I really need to be made out of steel and emotionless? And the answer is no, of course not. And because here's what happens with emotions and energy. If you stuff it down, it's going to come back up, and it comes back up in the form of stress, and it comes back up in the form of physical ailments and things, because if you don't address it while it's happening, it's going to keep tapping you on the shoulder. And
Yes.
that's when the mind is running, when the mind is starting now to project and going, oh, now I've got to do this. And now I've got to do this. And you feel like you're on the wheel. Right.
Yes.
And then they go, well, now they feel like it's a house of cards. If I move this card, right. And then the biggest challenge, if you're a leader in the office, in the company, the business owner, is that the old school was, oh, being vulnerable or showing empathy is a weakness, when in fact, it's your greatest power. It is your greatest power because, like you said, how do you communicate with your family? With empathy. If you get home and your little boy's falling off his bike, right? You're going to comfort him. You're not going to go, hey, why didn't you excel at this bike riding thing, right? Well, you've got to do the same thing when you're talking to your team at work, right? Okay, someone's having a breakdown. We don't know why. You may think they're having an issue with their work. They may be having some personal problems at home that they can't bring here. They're, half connected, half disconnected, right? And so now we're seeing that the real power in leadership is to really master these skills of emotional intelligence. And because also, Judy, you then, when it's a beautiful awareness, it doesn't take a long time to master it, by the way. Even if you've been struggling for 10, 15, 20 years with something, you can instantly turn it around because it's an awareness. And when you become aware, you can heal it, right? Not
Right.
only that, but then you gain the advantage. You see it in team members and you can go, oh, that was me. That was me. And now I can get them out of it. Now I can communicate with them. And so it really is, it's a power. And the beauty is it's a power that's used for good.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I, I saw a news piece a few weeks ago on the morning news, and it was a gentleman who was a bartender. And so this is a year later, a year after I first started talking about, we have two families. We have our work family and our personal family. And he just said, I spend most of my waking hours at the job, and I want to feel like I'm part of a family, because this is where I spend my time. This is where I get trained to perform. This is where I invest my pride center. This is where I'm going to make money to put away and save and survive. And I just said, so yes, from the bottom up, everybody wants to feel connected. Everybody wants to feel like they're part of a family, part of a team. And I'm so happy that where we're going culturally now is in recognizing soft power.
Yeah.
Not that hard power, that strong, tough leader. That's kind of passe now. I mean, we do want to be able to rely on our leaders. We want to know who to go to, who can give us some guidance when we need it. So,
Yeah,
fine, you have to be that person, but you also have to be a person.
exactly. It's so true. And
Yeah.
again, it's not a weakness. It's actually a beautiful power. Right. And it's interesting that you bring up bartenders. Recently I saw a statistic that said they have one of the highest divorce rates.
Oh, I can imagine why.
And,
Yes.
again, it's, because it's the nature of their job. And then who are they choosing to be partner? And often it's because the spouse says, oh, you care more about your work family than me. Right. So
Always.
there's this, this is not, it's when you have the skills, you can actually communicate effectively at home and at work, and be that human and see that human quality in your employees, right? And teach them and lead this by example. And you can still be a leader. You can still, set performance goals and set, but what you do is think about it. If you have acquired this team, right? You've acquired your team, and if you're not meeting them where they're at, you're not mining your gold.
Oh,
You're leaving your kid, right? You're just not mining your gold. And
absolutely.
but there's a huge comfort that comes with knowing and understanding what's going on in you, and then being able to communicate it and seeing how it lands, and then being able to adjust and say, okay, that language definitely put this person on the defensive, so I need to go further back. I can give you a quick example. There are say somebody in childhood had like a bossy mom, right? Where they weren't allowed to, right? How many of us have heard, you're to be seen and not heard, right? Believe it or not, Judy, if you haven't healed your emotional reaction to that, fast forward, they go to the office, they hear subconsciously their mother when employers asking them to do something. And that's when they start to harbor this feeling of being unseen. And then the employer or the manager is giving an instruction is like, wow, why did they get so defensive?
Upset. Yeah.
And it's actually, just an emotional wound that needs to be healed, that can be quickly turned around, by the way, because when they have an awareness of it, then they go, oh, okay, clearly, Joe, my manager, is not my mom. And then they can say, okay, now I understand that, this is what triggered me, right? And that's why I say triggers are our best friends. So yeah, it's a huge challenge to try to keep, and listen, we all deserve at the end of the day, everybody wants love, right? We have two choices to make. Is it a love-based decision or a fear-based decision?
Right.
When you go to the office, you want your employees to love you, you want your clients to love you, and you should love them too, right? And understanding that your relationship with all of them is not going to be the same, but your intention, if you're coming from a place of transparency and love versus fear, because the fear mongering has been proven, it doesn't work at all anymore, right? And so thanks for bringing this topic to light, because I love it, and it's really worth speaking about, because I think it's there. I know very few people that have that beautiful balance that they want, where they can be slammed at work and get home, right? And be able to communicate, I've got nothing left in the tank, right? There's nothing left in the tank. But then they also learn how to incorporate their personal lives in a better way.
And just in conclusion to all of this, we have two families, the work family and the personal family. In people's own personal families, when the yelling stops and everybody's tired and there's a quiet moment, the first person who apologizes, the first person who recognizes that nobody did anything to hurt anybody, it was just misunderstood, let's change things going forward. It's a vulnerable moment. The whole point I'm trying to make is it's a vulnerable moment. Those vulnerable moments are gold at work. And I hope, and this is the way I talk to my own clients, don't be afraid to apologize. Don't be afraid to say, I am so very sorry. I didn't understand. Can we start over? Never be afraid to do that. because that really is your golden power to
Okay.
be able to, that's the great leveler. Now you become human beings, now you become vulnerable, and you can both create a path forward that's unique to your situation. And
So
with that, that's a tuna wrap, Patty.
thank you so much, Judy. But you're right. I want to add one little thing on there, and you're right. One of our best skills is forgiveness. We forget. Stop punishing and start forgiving. It puts an end to it.
Here, here.
Thank you so much, Judy.
My pleasure.